Okay, so this week we've talked about exponents and prime factorization. We've learned about those or reminded you about them so that we can do order of operations. If I came to class today and I had my socks on top of my shoes, what would you say to me?
You're crazy.
I'm crazy. Why?
Because you're not supposed to wear socks over shoes.
Because I'm not supposed to wear socks over shoes. Okay, what do you think?
I think that you might have put them on at the wrong time.
In the wrong time or in the wrong order? I put them on in the wrong order. All right, so everybody in here, you've all baked before or cooked something?
Yes.
What do you tend to follow?
Directions.
Some directions, a recipe, right? It has some kind of sequence. So if I wanted to bake a cake and I take the eggs and the milk and the cake recipe and just put it inside the bowl and put it in the oven and just watch it, am I going to have a cake?
No.
Why? I
I
didn't follow the instructions. I just kind of put stuff in the bowl. That's weird. If I turn the oven on, it's probably going to cause some kind of destruction. I didn't follow an order. And so what we're talking about today is order of operations and why it's important for all of us to follow a specific set of orders when we're solving math problems. There are 15 of us in here, 16 including myself. We should all be able to take one problem and solve it and all get the same answer. And we'll do that if we follow the correct steps. So we have two definitions that we have written down already. The first one is order of operations. It is the set of rules to follow when solving a math problem. And then we have numerical expressions. You guys have been seeing numerical expressions throughout the year, probably not realizing that that's what they are. It's part of an equation, just one side of it. Okay, so it doesn't have an equal sign here. It's an expression consisting of numbers and operations that represent a particular value. So I want you to take your index card that we started with. We've prepped these. I'm going to zoom out here. But we're going to be writing some notes on the opposite side of these wings that go over the steps here. So there are 4 steps in the order of operations. The first one starts with the letter P. What do you think that is? Parentheses. And so on this wing here, I'm going to move my journal to the side just so I have my foldable in front of me. I'm going to open this wing here and I'm going to zoom in on what we have written down. It's parentheses. So parentheses can look like any one of these different types of grouping symbols. We have the regular ones we're used to seeing, and we have these things that have like brackets or braces, they're called, and then you have your box brackets. Parentheses is the first thing we're going to look at. So the first step is to determine if there's parentheses, we're going to simplify the expressions inside the grouping symbols first. When you have that written down, give me a Roadrunner. Okay, so it looks like this. Again, parentheses can be any 3 of these. You're going to simplify expressions inside the grouping symbol first. Okay, so I got a couple of you ready. Some of you are still writing. I'm going to start to put that second one on the screen. You'll get to see both the first and second step. I won't get that first one out of there. But E, what do you think E stands for? We learned about it this week. What do you think, Kaylee? Exponents. So E is for exponents, and it is the second step in the order of operations. Now I have an example here. We have 3 to the second power. Remember, the exponent is actually the 2. The exponent tells us the number of times the base repeats. So 3 times 3 equals 9, and that's not to be confused with 3 times 2. So your second step in the order of operations is to evaluate the powers, or to use or solve the exponent. So you want to do the exponent second. Okay. If you got it, say I got it. Okay. If you need more time, say need more time. Okay, I'm going to give you about maybe 30 more seconds. Get that second part written down, exponents. Yes, sir.
Did you say number of times space repeats? Because what does that mean? 3 and 3 plus 3 and 3?
Repeats, but remember we talked about exponents is showing repeated multiplication. So it's really the number of times that base repeats. So I'm going to show it twice. See here how it's shown 2 times? And then the operation within it is going to be multiplication. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to the next step. So the third step is done like a couple. We have 4 operations in math. Which 2 start with an M and a D?
Multiplication and division.
Multiplication and division. So our third step would be to multiply and divide in order from left to right. So whichever operation comes first is what you're going to do. This is probably where students make the biggest mistake, okay, or the most common, not the biggest. The most common mistake is going to come in step 3. Because just because we list multiplication first, students want to multiply first. They're done together. They're a pair. It's a partner. So you multiply and divide in order from left to right, whichever comes first. So if division comes first, you need to divide. If multiplication comes first, you need to multiply. And the example we're going to do today will have division going first. So you'll see that. The last 2 operations we use in math start with an A and an S. What are they? Yeah. So this is the same rule. Addition and subtraction are done as a couple. That's kind of the way I tend to remember them. They're partners. You will add and subtract in order from left to right, whichever comes first. So just like multiplication and division, you are going to start from left to right, and whichever one you come across first. If you come across addition first, you'll do that. If you come across subtraction first, you'll do that. Okay, so I'm going to let you finish writing that down, and then we're going to secure this foldable into our journal. So where I had you write glue, that's what you're going to do. Glue it into your journal. You can glue it horizontally or vertically, just depending on how it will fit. Yes, ma'am.
When the adding and subtraction, when you say the first comes first, if the multiplying is repeated, the dividing is repeated, the dividing secondly?
Yes. So you would multiply first, yep, and then still do some division. Don't move on to adding and subtraction if you still have some multiplication and division in the problem. Yep, good question. All right, so I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to secure it to my journal. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. You can secure yours vertically or horizontally, just depending on how much space you have. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and secure it vertically, since I have the room for it. And we're going to do an example underneath those tabs. It's all right, we can throw that away. So your foldable should be secured, and you should be able to open and see underneath it whether it's this way or this way. Okay. Now there's a pretty common acronym that a lot of people use to help them remember the order of operations. You may have heard it before. please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, this is just a little phrase that we used to remember. This is not the order of operations. This is, okay? So don't confuse it. When someone says, what's the order of operations? Don't say, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's just the phrase that we use to remember it, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do a problem together. I'm going to open this tab here, and we're going to do all of our work right underneath this tab. I'll wrap this up here really quick. 9 minus 5 divided by 8 minus 3 times 2 plus 6 to the second power. Notice we have a lot of operations going on in here. Okay, so just above the problem, I'm going to put PEMDAS. This PEMDAS, that little abbreviation or that acronym right above it, is going to help me to make sure it's like a checklist. All right, so what's the first step in the order of operations? Parentheses. So let's look. Do we have parentheses? Yes. So what is 8 minus 3? 5. Now, one of the things that you got to do, especially as you're learning, is bring everything down. This is where students want to cut corners. They don't want to rewrite the whole problem. And I understand that. I was a student too. But it's very important that you do that, especially as you're learning this. So we've already looked at parentheses. Do we have any exponents? Yes, back here. So what does the exponent tell me to do? 6 times 6. Good. What is 6 times 6? 36. Be careful that you don't say that 6 times 2 because it's not correct. Okay. So we've done parentheses and then exponents. Remember, multiplication and division are a couple. So we're going to look for multiplication and division. We're going to start from the left and go to the right. What do you got, Kaylee?
Do you have to keep the parentheses when you're
No. So you'll notice here there were parentheses, and then after I did what was inside it, I just dropped those parentheses off. You would keep them if there was more than one operation inside, but in this case there's only one. Okay. All right, so multiplication and division from left to right. What comes first? Scarlett? 5 divided by 5. So we're going to divide that. What is that going to be? 1. So bring everything else down. All right, so we still have something from that partner pair, multiplication and division. What do we have? Go ahead, Elizabeth. 1 times 2. So we got to finish this up. And this kind of lends itself to the question Ashley asked earlier. Do we need to do both of those if we still have some multiplication and division before moving on to addition and subtraction? And that's, we have to. So yes. 2 is the correct response. All right, so we did them. And now we're going to look at our last partner pair, which is addition and subtraction. What are we going to do first? What do you think? Subtract. Subtraction comes first from left to right. Be careful. Don't fall into the trap. So 9 minus 2 is 7 plus 36, which is our final step. 7 plus 36 is 43. Okay. You should notice that when I look at my problem, it's going to start pretty wide and work its way down. You can make it a triangle, a funnel, a tornado, a flower pot, whatever it is you want to call it is fine as long as you follow the correct order of operations. Are we good? All right, so you're going to start doing some practice problems.